our system has been set up to punish instead of support and encourage. The teachers saw me, they saw something special in me.
What we remember our stories.
AI is here, it's not going away. Hey, for 500 bucks, whoop,
Yeah.
let me give you an experience. So when you design it with purpose, you can actually make learning more human.
Unless teachers are on board or if they're not trained properly, it won't work.
My direction to education is human first, content second. You can do a lot of these things with just good teaching, but can you elevate it with tech? Most definitely.
Hello, my fellow school leaders. I'm Avinash Bansal, co-founder at Tomo Club. And today in our Tomo Club podcast series, we have the Chief Academic Officer of Elite Academic Academy, Dr. Laura Spencer. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today.
So I was going through your profile and it's so inspiring that you have been an US Army veteran. You have been a mother. You have been in education for such a long time. And you have also been doing a lot of work on equity. I saw you're a founding member of that, I guess, a community in a way. You have been a president of computer using educators, and also now leading AI and VR in your school. It's really excited to have such kind of conversation with people. And today our topic is also around AI and VR in education and how we can improve retention and engagement with that. So thank you so much for taking your time and, being a part of the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. It's funny to hear what people hear about me, right? Like what stands out. So I was like, oh yeah, I have done all those things.
Yeah, I think we do tend to not celebrate or you know
Yeah,
feel good
25
about.
years is a lot of time in education. You forget that, we've made a difference. We've all made a difference. So thank you for reminding me.
No, of course. And I always start my podcast with a very simple question, but very important question is why K-12? What got you into education in the first place?
I think what got me into education and specifically K-12 was my own childhood. We moved a lot, so trying to find a sense of self and a sense of belonging. I was doing a keynote for our school's professional development last week, and I was telling them in sixth grade I'd moved to a new city. So I was in a brand new city, brand new town, far away from my family, from everybody. And when I went to school, I realized I did not fit in there. Right. You kind of come in like, it's going to be great. I picked out the cutest outfit and this is going to be my year. And it wasn't.
Mhm.
But the teachers were, right? The teachers saw me. They saw something special in me. They invited me to participate in different events. They really kind of held my hand as I struggled to make a sense of self. And that's when I realized it was actually like sixth grade started, then seventh grade, my Spanish teacher, I realized like this is where I belong. Just that connection that he provided and that ability to say, like, I don't just see you as a Spanish student in my class and who gets good grades, but like I just see you as this person who's interesting. And that was it. Like I never looked back from there. And I did join the army, which, was not in the plans, but it was an important sidestep actually, because it gave me clarity and purpose. It gave me the opportunity to grow up a little bit and see the world and understand things from a different perspective. And then it was like, here I am, I'm going to K-12. I actually thought I was going to be a high school English teacher. So when I started, that was going to be my thing. I was going to teach literature. Everybody was going to love every single book that I presented. It was going to be this like magical moment.
Done.
I did it for a year and I realized that they don't really care about the literature, right? They don't want to do those things. And I moved down to middle school and realized that it's about the students, it's about the human, it's about the connection. Like everything you teach is secondary to that. And I just found my groove. Like I loved seventh graders. They were so bizarre. They don't want to love you and need you, but they do love you and need you. So it's always this push and pull of, one day they want to be mean to the teacher, then the next day they want to have lunch with you. And I just loved it. And it really turned my direction to education is human first, content second.
Hmm.
And when I realized that, I think everything changed for me. Everything I did from that point on, and it's just been 25 years of figuring out how to stay true to that compass point for me.
Right. Wow. Now that's a very solid reason coming from whenever anything is coming from your personal agenda, I think that's always has a very powerful impact on your decision making.
Mm.
But now you are an administrator and for quite a while. So
Mhm.
do you feel that you have been missing that part where you were like interacting with the kids, or how do you manage that still?
It's interesting. When I switched into administration, I did it with purpose. So I had been teaching in the classroom. I was part of this program called Lemon Link. It was one of the first one-to-one programs in the nation where we sent devices home with kids. We provided Wi-Fi. We had a lot of politicians and public figures, kind of watching our program. And it was fabulous for the students I was working with. But what I realized was that I was this oasis for students, and there were students next door that weren't getting that same opportunity. I know we're talking about equity later, but it bothered me a lot. It really bothered me that these students that were in my room, we're kind of traveling the world through these experiences and having these opportunities and getting instant feedback. And the students next door were still pulling out a sheet of paper and writing down a paragraph and turning it in and maybe getting feedback in a couple of weeks. So I went into administration not in the traditional route. Like, I didn't go and become a vice principal or a principal. I went and became an ed tech coordinator. That was my jump into administration. And so I was still connected because my approach has always been, I will never leave you to try things on your own. I will be right by your side.
Mm,
So everything we did, I was in the classroom with the students as well, right? So I feel like even though I've moved up and I'm a little bit more disconnected, every choice I've made, every job I've taken has been because I knew I was still going to be connected. I will never take a position where it's like, hey, you just go in an office somewhere and sign off on all these papers. I have to be connected because, like I said, it's all about humanity. So that's been a really instrumental way for me to be an administrator but still stay connected. I have friends who will still invite me to come read books to their children in their classrooms, right? And so it's not even a district that I work in, but they'll just invite me down and say, "You want to come down and read?" I'm like, "Of course I want to come down and read." Or, "Are you doing something great? Let me come see it." I've toured a lot of different schools of just people I've met online and said, "I want to come see." And
mm,
so just spending that time, I think, keeps you grounded in purpose. And you stay the course. I know superintendents who still substitute teach for that same reason. They'll
mhm,
say, "Hey, I just do it a few times a month within my district," and it keeps a pulse on what's truly important, right? It's not all these reports we have to do for the state. I feel like every month, right? I'm filling out some paperwork somewhere for somebody, and it doesn't matter.
yeah.
So,
No, it's rare to find people with that amount of clarity. And I'm so glad I asked that question because now it sets so much like I have mind map about you in my head right now. And that's I think the best part of a podcast is when you can actually read a person and feel that
mhm,
now you have taken home some insights. So I love it that you always had that clarity in your mind even when you were switching
mhm,
roles within this
mhm,
K-12 space. So
mhm,
coming to our topic of discussion today,
mhm,
um,
right?
I'll head on with a very difficult question which I think is happening across the states, is that districts losing enrollment students, right?
Mhm,
Students
mhm.
districts are struggling with student retention. So how has been your school doing, like elite academic? How have you guys been experiencing it past year and this year in terms of enrollments?
It's interesting because since we're a charter, we're school of choice. And so we are probably part of the reason that districts are losing some of their enrollment is because they're moving to a school of choice, but we struggle with it as well.
Yeah,
And I think there's a few things going on with it is, first of all, I think when I was growing up, when you were growing up, we just went to the neighborhood school. We
right.
didn't question, our parents didn't question, right? You walked to the neighborhood school with everybody in your community and that was your life. And we now have these parents who are so much more savvy about what they want for their children. I think they're more invested. I don't want to say my parents weren't invested, but they were just like, they trusted the school implicitly, right? You just
Right.
go and the school will give you everything you need to know, and we'll just make sure your homework gets done. But now parents are like, no, I want this pathway for my child. I don't want this pathway for my child. I want my child to get it in this way. And so they're shopping and
Mm,
they're looking at schools and they're making decisions based on what's right for their child. And then if that changes, they have no problem pulling their child and putting them somewhere else that works for them. What's interesting about elite academic and why I jumped from traditional to elite 5, 6 years ago now is that at elite, every student gets one teacher that follows them every year. We also have subject matter expert teachers who teach the subjects, but they have this one teacher, it's a teacher of record, and that teacher stays with them. And I think that ability to have an adult in your life who cares about you, that's not family,
mm,
it's harder to leave, right? It's the difference between just saying, there's new adults every year. They don't really know me. I'm one of 160 students and throughout the day, especially, at the middle school level. But for our students, it's like, no, I actually know my teacher. My teacher knows me. Sometimes she might show up at my soccer game on the weekend. She remembers things about me. And so being that school of choice and having that unique personalized approach, once we get them, they don't leave. So we still, battle like everybody else does in terms of getting them in the doors. But when I started the October before COVID. So I had no idea that COVID was coming. Obviously, I started in 2019. And I believe at the time we had 700 or 800 students. COVID hit, obviously changed the game for a lot of parents too of what they want for their children. We're sitting at 2,200 now.
Wow. That's
So
crazy.
there's a lot of families who are looking at traditional education and saying this isn't what's best for my child. I'm not saying traditional education is bad. I put
Right.
my kids through a traditional education system, right? It works for the students that it was meant to work for. But when you have students who are struggling for whatever reason, whether it's, mental health issues, whether it's we have like Olympian horseback riders who are like, I can't get to school 8 to 3 every day, right? We have kids who are transient who bounce from town to town or sleeping in cars or on, kind of couch surfing with different people. We are an option for them. And unfortunately, the way traditional education is set up, they can never be an option for them.
Right.
And it's
Right.
not their fault. It's just the way the system was set up to work. And
Right.
so I think we're seeing with this enrollment and the retention issue is that families are really making choices, and we offer that consistency. We offer relationships. We offer like a path forward. So if you come to us as a high school student and you say, I don't know what was wrong with me. I never went to school freshman and sophomore year. I'm 100 credits behind. My school says I'm not going to graduate. We will find a way to get them to graduate. We will work with them. We will customize those classes, right? We will get them to the finish line, and traditional just can't do it. So I think that's what they're seeing now is they're seeing this sort of pushback against what has always been
Right.
because this new generation of parents are just they want more. And
Mhm.
traditional ed can't provide it fast enough. My daughters are both in the Navy, and you just think of like that aircraft carrier going down on the open ocean. And when it wants to turn, it has to go miles before it
Mhm.
can even turn. And that's traditional ed. They are that aircraft carrier, right? They're like, we want to turn. We'll see you in a little bit, right? Whereas in a charter school, we want to turn. We're like, whoop,
Yeah.
and we're and so I just think that's a bigger picture that all schools need to start addressing is really being customer focused, and their customer are these families and what do they want and how am I going to provide that for them? And that's a lot of the AI and VR conversation we're going to have today, right? Is
Yeah.
what do they want and how do I provide that for them?
No, I'm glad if your enrollments have almost doubled in like
Mhm.
quadruple. No, it tripled, sorry. If it
Yeah,
has
triple.
tripled in
Hmm.
5, 6 years, it's fantastic.
Hmm.
And if you have not
Hmm.
launched a single child, that means the market dynamics should be in every industry. The demand
Hmm.
supply thing. I think education always had this monopolistic culture. So if it is out there for parent choice, it actually will improve efficiency at every end, whether
Hmm.
traditional or non-traditional doesn't matter. So yeah, I think for any kind of a fair trade in a society, such kind of competition is always welcomed. It improves efficiency of everyone. So I love that.
Exactly.
And also, I think from a parent point of view, um, not for this might not be relevant for everyone, but what I want to say is our parents were much more focused in building the basics of life, whether it was house or whether it was making sure that there's food on the table, even if they were like doing decently well, but there was less focus on child life as compared to our generation where we or social media or multiple reasons or we have lesser kids than our parents or whatever the reasons be, but we tend to be much more and we talk about it among other parents. So there are a lot of other reasons that why current parent is a savvy parent. In fact,
Yeah.
if you look at the average age of conceiving, that has also gone way up. So
Hmm.
it's an informed choice to be a parent.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, if you have one or two kids, or like you tend to be much more calculative of where they're gonna be in. So I agree with that. And so I also want to understand like if you talk about AI or VR, some
Hmm.
people argue that technology can actually become a culprit, for engagement piece or the retention piece. It can get
Hmm.
people to distract or less connected, be more isolated.
Hmm.
How do you counter that narrative? And why I'm asking it right now is because once we get into the positive aspects, then I want to talk about positive. Let's start with the negative first.
Sure, sure. So I've been working with tech. Like I said, I did a one-to-one program. I think it was like 2002, 2003 is when we started going one-to-one. So I've been there and I've seen bad tech. And bad tech does exactly what you said, right? It disconnects kids. When I did a one-to-one iPad rollout as an administrator, and some teachers were great, right? They did creative things, kids were exploring, kids were learning. And other teachers who were a little bit more hesitant set the iPad in front of a kid and said, here's a math program. I'll see you in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's it's bad tech, it's bad implementation, but the tech itself has potential, right? So when you design it with purpose, you can actually make learning more human. If
Hmm.
I can remove barriers through technology, the fact that we're having this conversation via Zoom and you're recording it and making a podcast, and I don't have to fly out there, I don't have to get a hotel room, right? I don't have to meet you in person. Like tech can do great things. It could connect people that
Right.
otherwise wouldn't be connected. But I have to be intentional about that. And so many times I feel so bad for teachers because we purchase at the top, I say weeks, I'm admin, right? We purchase something and we say, here, go do this thing. And we haven't explained to them the why. We haven't given them purpose. We haven't given them time. And maybe the why doesn't matter in that classroom. Maybe that's like, what? Why do I need this? So
Yeah.
I think we just have to be so intentional with the technology, and it's not a quick fix. So anytime a company comes to me and says, if you buy my product, you're going to see, English language arts scores rise 15%, I'm like, not interested. It's never going to be a quick fix. It's how it's implemented, it's how it's used, it's how it's created. That's the difference. So could it be a culprit? Sure. Is social media draining, humanity of their brain powers? Probably, right? I'm on it way too much. I admit it. I scroll Instagram and lose brain cells every night. I think, a lot of us do. I get it. And these kids are young and impressionable. So we have to be even more intentional with when we use it so that we show them that this isn't just an opportunity to check out.
Right.
Right. If I go to a restaurant, and again, this is just a difference in generations, but when I was growing up, when we went out to eat, when we went to a restaurant, you had conversations, right? We were taught like how to be respectful, how to engage in conversations and such. And now I go to restaurants and I see a bunch of kids on tablets, right?
Hmm.
It's like, hey, be quiet and just be over there while I have this moment with this person. And I get it. We're all exhausted. So again, I'm not critiquing, I'm not judging those families, but it's balance,
Yeah.
right? If that's the only time you do that, rad. But if that student's having that experience, or that kid's having that experience 10, 11 hours a day of just go on this device and leave me alone,
Hmm.
that's a problem,
Yeah.
right? So, and I'll be honest, like I know we're gonna talk about VR. I've been doing stuff in XR, VR space for a long time and hated it. Like every generation of implementation of tech up until now, I've been like, no, no, it's just a way to pacify kids. It's not core learning. It wasn't until this new generation of tools where I'm like, okay, I actually see potential now. It's not a babysitter. And I think a lot of people use it as a babysitter or a quick fix, and that's why tech is a culprit.
Hmm. I love that answer. Hands down, I would want to cut it out as a reel itself because you just nailed it. First of all, having, I love that you had a previous role as an edtech
Mm-hmm.
coordinator. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's not an obvious designation in a lot of schools. So
Right.
I'll give you my experience. I was working with a school and I was onboarding them on our game technology. And so last year when I did it, I just assumed that they would understand the purpose. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just talking about the platform, talking about the games and all that. And then I realized that those teachers are not tech coordinators. They're not, it's not their main job. Their main job is to teach math or English or social science. And I'm like, okay, this year, when we started doing professional development of our product, I spent first 15 minutes on only why. And I
Mm-hmm.
made them think about it that why. Once they had this clarity that why are they in this session or what this product has a potential to do, I could see things flipping. They were much more interested. They spent more time, and I was doing much more better hand holding. in the first aspect. First, I used to show it to them, proper working, then giving them the breakout room to give a chance to do it themselves. So I totally feel it in my bones when you said that a tech with purpose, a tech where you are able to explain the impact will
Hmm.
automatically be much more relevant and won't have
Hmm.
this issues of because kids get bored, kids reject things very quickly.
Right.
So, and if it's coming from the teacher who themselves are not pretty equipped that what it is for, how can you expect that they will percolate it to the students? So
Exactly.
crazy. And I'm glad because of my opinion, VR was supposed to be the next big thing for last 25, 30 years. And it has never hit that.
It
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 has,
never it never has. It
I
never
have bought
has.
Oculus One. I have myself tried the Apple VR. I forgot
Hmm.
what's the name.
The
What's the
Vision
Vision
Pro, I
Pro.
think.
I've
Hmm.
tried the Vision Pro. My friend works at Apple. He has like I've done a lot of discussion about him. Loved some part of it, but still, I would love to know from your first-hand experience, how has the VR technology improved, or now why do you make it? Why do you feel that now it has some relevance for the students?
Um, I think the reason VR is starting to hit its sweet spot now, I still think it has a ways to go before it's fully there, is honestly because of AI. So
Hmm.
I think when we've done VR in the past, it's been very flat, right? It's like download this game, you can go in, you can walk around, you can do something. I played a game the other day where it was like a target, like throwing axes, right? You go to the bar
Yeah.
and you throw axes. But this is a game for kids, and it was like which math problem has a correct answer, throw the axe. And I was like, oh, okay, for maybe 5 minutes, this is fun. But then what am I going to do with students? And I've spent all this money, on this machine.
Yeah.
What's happening now, though, is because AI is coming into the VR space, these opportunities are becoming more about immersion and not about novelty.
Hmm.
Because now AI is adding another element on top where the interaction is adapting to the person that's in the space. And so you can take the learning further. And
Hmm.
we're also finding it's not really open source, but we're finding companies that are willing to kind of give you access to their portal. Obviously, you pay for it, and so that we can build our own experiences. So it was just like this perfect storm now is coming together. I think where we're gonna find our sweet spot of can I create what I know my students need in the way that I want them to experience it? Can I have AI interact with them to take it to a personalized level so they're not all just, throwing something at a target?
Hmm. Yeah.
And what feedback can I get out of it to instruct my education as well? So years ago when we all remember Google Cardboard and you'd like put your phone in
Yeah.
and you'd hold it up to your face. I bought so many of those for our students, and I would ask parents, hey, if you're buying new phones for Christmas, will you donate your old phones to us? We're going to do all this stuff with Google Cardboard. But again, it was like, okay, I'm watching it, right? I'm on a roller coaster, or I see the elephant in Africa going to the watering hole, and it was like, cool. It
Yeah.
took me an hour to get all this set up, and within 5 or 10 minutes, the students were back to being like, "What else can I do on board?" Or clicking around and doing different things. But now, if I'm like, "Hey, we're gonna take this trip to Africa, and we're gonna see these elephants coming up to this watering hole," I also can have an AI person there,
Hmm.
right? And can ask questions about the elephant experience, or kind of go around and look at it from different angles, and maybe I can change the scenario and say, okay, what would happen if the rainfall was half as much this year, and see a progression of what this is doing to their experience. Now it's important, right? Now I'm immersed in it. So our goal at Elite was never like to wow kids with the goggles. It was to make learning something they could feel. We
Right.
want them to take these abstract concepts and make them into real experiences. Our students were non-classroom based. So our students don't have the pleasure of going to a welding lab at school, or being able to actually like, go in and do all these different components, but we can through VR,
Right.
right? I can take them anywhere. I can give them opportunities to learn. And so that's where I'm like, now is the time,
Hmm.
right? And like I said, like I've gone through so many different versions of this. I have a bunch of different XR glasses on my desk that I've bought. Like, this is going to be the one that, makes my workspace so much better. And I'm like, okay, maybe not. And then the next one comes out, I'm like, another $300, $500, let me try it. But I feel like as cool as Apple's product is, and I am a Mac person till the day I die, their VR is not ready for classrooms,
Mm.
right? It's crazy expensive. It's very personalized. I feel like Meta hit the mark on this one. I feel like the Quest 3S is what we're rolling out with students. They have figured out MDM, so now I can work on that device on the back end, right? Whereas before, again, I'd have to put everyone on and say, download this app, let me buy this app. And now I'm able to push out apps to all 300 devices, in a moment. I'm able to see if they're being used, what kids are doing. So it's hitting that point where people are going to start to be like, oh, wait a minute,
Mm.
right? Let me take a look. My I don't have buses because I can't find drivers to drive buses, right? I'm having a hard enough time just getting them to school, so I can't do field trips. I've lost my other budget, so I have this huge CTE program, but we can't buy new equipment. All these different things that hold back schools.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, for $500, whoop,
Yeah.
let me give you an experience, right? It's not taking over the world. I'm not saying it's again, it's not a quick fix, but it's a piece of the puzzle that we're just now finding is like, okay, we're
Mm.
ready, right? Let's do this thing.
And that's very well put. I think the AI aspect that you have explained makes sense. And of course, the way you are setting is with $500, they can have an experience of maybe $5,000 within first
Mhm.
1 month. Uh,
Right.
but you told me about the situations that you can create within VR. So is there any application where you can define the situation and it just pops up, or you can
So,
put
I mean,
some?
you gotta do some work, right? I mean, nothing's like click and this creates itself. But we've been working with a company called Engage, and Engage is I don't know, I guess kind of like a YouTube, like a content platform, and they have a whole bunch of backgrounds of different things that you can grab, and then you can build on top of that. So I can create this space, and then I can go and create an AI character, right? So we have students who talk to John F. Kennedy. We have students talk to Marie Curie or Cleopatra. We put them in that space, so they're
Mhm.
immersed in it. And it's something you can either design or you can grab theirs, what they've created. But it's just again, it's becoming easier. And the other piece is with I honestly don't have to know how to do all the coding in VR anymore, right? Like I'll go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm trying to create this thing in this tool, this platform. And all of a sudden it's giving me coding and
Mhm.
helping me build it over here. So now I don't even have to have all of that experience. Before you'd be like, I need a Unity designer, I need this person, I need that. And now I'm like, well, just just give me an hour or so. And I think I can figure this out. And that's what we did with our teachers when we started last year, giving some teachers VR. We had a pilot group and we gave it to teachers and to our leadership team and told them nothing.
Mhm.
Right. I was like, here's this headset. You should put it on and go do some things. Um, and they did, but then as they started doing it, they were like, gosh, I wish I could do this. And so
Mhm.
like there's your why, right? Oh, you do? Well,
Mhm.
imagine that. Let me show you how we can get there. And so they had to pitch what they wanted it to do and how they're going to roll that out to students like, hey, I really want, this frog dissection, but I want it to be like this.
Mhm.
And roll it out that way. There's still a lot of VR companies out there that build experiences that are like kind of two-dimensional and flat,
Mhm.
right? And so you got to be very mindful of which companies that you choose to engage with in K-12, um, who are building things I think that are meaningful and relevant and not just like I built this like I went in one and it was like it was a science lab and you went inside and they had these beakers and you could mix different chemicals and it would tell you like did you blow up the lab or did you make
Mhm.
something and it was fun but what was I supposed to do with that information? Right? There was no big picture learning. There was no person in that room with me saying, so Laura, what did you learn about mixing these two chemicals, right? Now that the lab has burnt down. So, I just like did it. And I was like, okay, I'm done. Right. And I took it off. So again, just being very meaningful with how we want to use it and then what we're building. And I just think now people are realizing, companies are realizing that they need to open the door, kind of open source some of these things and let people build. And it's
Mhm.
becoming fun. It's just,
Yeah.
you know,
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, even if they don't make it open source. But the fact that a lot of people could have published their apps before
yeah.
also on these
Hmm.
VR platforms,
Hmm.
just that it was expensive and difficult to make those apps or find people to make
Right.
apps.
Right.
Now the development has been democratized, so it's
Hmm.
definitely getting simpler. And plus these companies in between who have all sort of stock content and over which they can generate custom
Hmm.
content quicker. So
Hmm.
I am on board with the idea till now that because of the content, ease of content creation, and because of AI, every educator, whether it's math, English, science, history, geography, civil
Hmm.
rights, whoever is working, they can come up with their own ideas of how
Hmm.
the content will look like.
Right.
Tell me about the impact point of view from little bird eye view. Like, give me an overlay of which educators are using it more, which students are using it more, for which subjects, and
Hmm.
what use cases, and how has it like brought an impact? Do you have
Hmm.
any
So
picture on?
we are definitely sticking with older students just because of the research of not knowing, right, the impact of having these devices on younger kids. So
Hmm.
um not working so much with elementary students, but about like fifth, sixth grade has been where we've started and been up. And so again, it's like in science. Okay, we've learned about the race to the moon, we've learned about space, you've seen pictures in your textbook. Remember when we were growing up, they'd like roll the TV into the room and put something in and you'd watch a video. But our students did a 2-week immersive, 10 days immersive with the VR headset where they went and they watched the rocket go up and then they were trying to land the
Hmm.
lunar module on the moon. And then they were trying to create the ultimate plan was create a pitch like, should we go to the moon again? Like,
Hmm.
what was the value of this experience? And was it worth all that we put into it? And should we go back? I could have done all that with a textbook. I certainly could. I could do it with websites, I could do it with YouTube, and I could do all those pieces. But to like hear the rumbling of the engines like in surround sound and being able to look around and look up and look down and see how far down it goes right under, like it just changes your perspective of the enormity of this experience. And so you keep talking about it because you feel like you were there. And
Hmm.
it's not, I had to read these 3 chapters and write a paper or do a project about it. That's what's changing the game. We have one of our high school teachers is teaching painting and drawing this year, and she has this plan. She's like, I want them to do 3D painting with the VR headset. So not
Hmm.
only do we have the VR headset, but we bought the Logitech pen. So instead of having to use the big controllers, right, they can actually write like a pencil or a pen in this space. And so, she's already building out that lesson, to go out to students a little bit later in the school year. So it's not about like replacing the simple things, but where are those moments where you know that an experience will change the learning, right?
Hmm.
I'm not going to do this every day. Nobody has time to do this every day to build lessons. I would never advocate for students to be sitting in headsets, for an hour or 2 hours a day. We see it on sci-fi movies. That's not where we're going. But I think people think that, right? They think like, oh, do you just put them in a headset and walk away? It's like, no, we're very intentional. You might
Hmm.
spend 20, 25 minutes with the headset, right? But where is it a game changer? If I'm talking about empathy, can I bring you somewhere and show you what the world is like elsewhere? Right? You've lived in SoCal your entire life. You see the beach, you have this experience. What would it look like if you went to a market in Marrakesh? Or what would it look like, if you went to school in Spain or whatever it is? Those are game changers, right? Those like alter their perception of who they are and the universe around them. That's VR. That's the power of VR, right? And again, like that's that AI integration. So that's what our teachers are looking at is they're looking at opportunities that elevate and don't just replace.
Right.
It's a lot of work to just replace, right? But we know like frog dissection is ethically an issue for a lot of students,
Right.
right? For whatever reason, either it's gross or they value the animal's life or whatever reason they're not going to do it. But it's a standard.
Hmm.
I don't know why the state still has it a standard, but for whatever reason they think everybody in their country should, dissect a frog. So can we do that in VR where we take away those components and they still get to understand the body systems but they can do it,
Yeah.
right? Whereas when I was in traditional ed, we had a lot of students who would go to the library during
Mm.
frog dissection day and like read a book. So there's an
Mm.
equity issue there, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have that opportunity to learn and engage with something for whatever reason. I'm not judging your reason, but you were deprived of an opportunity.
Right.
Now VR can give every student that opportunity, right? I
Hmm.
can take them all to the beach on VR.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally had students. It's so funny. I'm in San Diego. I worked in a town that was 20 minutes from the beach. I had students who had never been to the beach.
Wow.
Right? We were just, we just had a lot of students with socioeconomic difficulties. They'd never been to the beach. I applied for grants to get buses to get those kids out to the water. Took a
Mm.
lot of work, right? And I was only able to bring two of my five classes out there, and that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But can I at least simulate that experience? Is it the same? No. Maybe I spray some salt water on your face or something, but it's not the same, of course. But does it change maybe where they're going to direct their future? Like, can I show them the importance of some things that weren't even in their realm of possibility?
Right. No, I am totally on board with the idea that how experiences matter. Like
Mhm.
honestly, if you and I look back in our own K-12 journey, what we are remember are stories, not
Mhm.
movies, not concepts,
Yeah,
not
exactly.
it's all about stories, right?
Hmm.
Even when we are
Hmm.
working, it's all about stories. So
Yes.
if VR is able to create a better story, and
Yes.
we don't need to measure the impact of that 30 minutes or 60 minutes experience with the entire 24 hours. So anyways, you're not replacing beach,
Hmm.
but you are giving them an opportunity to do it something together for 25 minutes. So absolutely. And I have seen personally myself, like if I have to teach students about teamwork, I can go and lecture them about it. I can show them multiple videos. Hardly anybody would actively participate. And
Right.
without active participation, they will listen to it like a movie or something which they're not paying
Right.
attention.
Right.
Forget about applying those concepts in your life. But when you're
Hmm.
in a game, it's an environment in which you tend to, and also I have read a lot about the impact of games or impact of
Hmm.
experiences, that
Hmm.
as a child you learn everything on a gamified basis.
Yes. Yes.
We tend
Growth
to,
mindset, right? You're like, that didn't work. Let me try again. You're right. That didn't work. Let me try. How many times did we play Super Mario Brothers and try to jump, right? And miss the jump. And we didn't say, oh, that's it, I'm done. Right? I think like
exactly,
100 times we try and make that jump. And I think game-based learning is a big part of the future.
right.
People who are dismissive of games are missing out. And I think you're so spot on with teamwork. I think the opportunity to collaborate, to communicate, to problem solve, right? To like have patience
Mhm.
as you're figuring things out. Like even if you just put a jigsaw puzzle in front of kids, right? And say, you got 2 minutes to figure out this jigsaw puzzle. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but we did this with adults. But we took one piece away and put it at another table. And
Mhm.
so eventually, as they were working in their groups, thinking they were competing, they realized actually I have to go talk to others. But whether it's VR, AI, or just good teaching, again, it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be tech, right? You can do a lot of these things with just good teaching, but can you elevate it with tech?
of
Most
course.
definitely.
Course.
Hmm.
It's just easier. Like, of course, I'm not denying the fact that nobody else can teach emotional intelligence quicker or
Right.
collaboration or empathy, but a game
Hmm.
bring kids to that level within 5 minutes, what a lecture would be
Hmm.
10, 15 minutes. So why not?
Hmm.
You have to
Right.
look at averages, and you're right. Whatever skill you just mentioned, those are the skills gonna be relevant in the age of AI, because the
Hmm.
hard skills, whether it's coding, designing, uh,
Hmm.
human resources, strategy,
Hmm.
sales, marketing, all of them are getting commoditized massively. So
Hmm.
the individuality aspect is all about these social emotional skills. And if
Hmm.
any of the experience can, and I always, I think I debate this, I can talk about this at length, that why it always happens that after a certain situation, we think that, oh, I should have said that, or I should have done that, because we haven't practiced it. Like,
Right. Right.
so when you're not practiced it, expecting those things will come to you subconsciously, um, or as a reflex is not possible. So
Right.
we as humans do not have a deliberate practice system in place.
Right.
And games, as you said, you do not have the fear of failure. and you tend
Right.
to improve yourself. And with the and similarly with the experiences, like
Hmm.
the creativity will just unlock, right? Having those elephants, imagining them right in the middle of a Times Square, and then
Hmm.
something about it. I think those kind of permutation combinations are going to be unlimited in the possible in a VR space. So, and I love it, like, the way you are looking at it, the way you are being very mindful about it. Sorry, but very few school out there would have that kind of, not because teachers don't have the capability, it's just that they don't have that kind of bent of mind by the management uh,
Hmm.
to give them enough room to have those kind of conversation. So
It
yeah,
it's the key piece, and I think you're right. I think that's the shift, right? And that's why so many initiatives fail, is because again, it's like, will this solve this problem? And the problem is something that is truly not the real problem. Like
yeah,
the problem is not that your students aren't scoring higher on their, state testing every year. The problem is that students aren't being given an opportunity to read, write, and speak authentically. Because if they have those opportunities, they will do better on the state test, right? If they have opportunities to learn about the universe, they're going to do better on a science test or a math test. So but when you get so narrow-minded and you're just like, I got to increase this score,
yeah,
and unfortunately, that's what happens because our system has been set up to punish instead of support and encourage, right? So we're sitting here telling students, hey, have a growth mindset and it's okay to fail and try again. But schools and districts in traditional education are not being given that same courtesy,
exactly.
right? They're being told like failure is not an option and we're going to come in and take you over, or we're going to take away funds, which is so bizarre to me. Like we're going to make it even harder for you to do well by, by doing these things, or kids are going to leave and now you have less money. And it's like this bizarre cycle of chaos.
Yeah,
But if everybody could just slow down and think about it and move with intention, we'd be so much farther on. I don't know. When I was a teacher in the classroom, they would say if you could spend the first couple weeks getting to know your students, even though you're behind
yeah.
on curriculum, you will gain
Mm,
the rest of the year, right? Just invest early, right? Like we talked about,
right.
invest in getting to know the person before you pitch whatever it is that you're selling. But so if teachers know that a few weeks with a student, just getting to know them and maybe taking things slow will bank down the road. But districts aren't doing the same thing of like, let's think for a little bit and truly talk about the why, then it's not going to work. And 3 years ago, we started that at Elite. So we called it the Elite X because we were kind of, playing off of SpaceX, but the Elite X Fellows. And we brought a group of teachers in. They chose to come. We did not offer them payment. It was a lot of extra work. And we said, we want you to redesign how we're teaching students. Remember, we're not classroom based, so everything for us is different, right? Redesign it for us. They spent a year struggling and recording themselves teaching lessons and analyzing the lessons and coming up with ideas, and they decided what was important in education, right? They realized that when they lessened their teacher footprint and allowed students to have more voice, that learning happened faster. So having them do the work for a year, that's a lot, right? And
Yeah,
then they came up with a guide for the other teachers at our school. And then a second group of fellows came in the second year to kind of validate that guide and say, well, let's look at it from our lens and what would we adapt? That's a lot of investment. And then when they were finished, it was like, oh, hey, we're going to give you some money now. But, but they really came to it because they were passionate about it. I think a lot of teachers are, but they don't have time or space or resources to do the work. So we gave them that and now we can move faster. I couldn't do VR if I hadn't done that fellowship work, right? I needed them in the mindset that they are not supposed to be the sage on the stage, right? That there are other better ways to teach. So even though it looks like, oh wow, you guys are rolling with VR, it's like this has been years of investment in our teachers
yeah,
and giving them space to learn and space to understand how important relationships are. We spend a lot of time on the science of mattering, on the science of hope, and trying to like determine what students actually need beyond test scores. So that now when I say, hey, I have this VR headset and I think it might help you, but I'm not even quite sure how, they're like, well, let me try. Let me look. Right. And they feel comfortable and they have space and they have support and they have trust. Because some of them said, I don't get it, right?
Mhm.
Not for me. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. I'm not gonna push you right now. I'm not gonna force you, right? But the teacher next door is like, can I have it?
Mhm.
Because I got ideas, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Let's go. So I don't know. I just like I know I kind of went on a side tangent, but I just think it's important to realize that if you don't invest in the humans first,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you could buy the best thing ever. It's just not going to work.
No, absolutely. And just adding a point, even among charter schools, not everyone has that kind of mindset, which you just
I
said.
know.
So it's not about just public schools.
I know. I
It's
know.
also about individual choices.
Hmm.
Now, you just touched upon the topic that I want to focus on last few minutes
Hmm.
about the
Hmm.
teacher training aspect, right?
Hmm.
Whatever you come up with, unless teachers are on board or if they're not trained properly, it won't work, as you already said. So,
Hmm.
what's the professional development look like, both on terms of VR and AI, AI
Hmm.
usually, and VR? That have you guys done anything on that lines?
So we've been doing a lot with AI. I think a lot of districts are, but again, I think the key is that we are focusing on the mindset and the ethics and the
Mm-hmm.
guardrails first. AI is here; it's not going away. So of course, when it hit big, what were all the emails I was getting was, "Can you block AI?" Right? I mean, it was like instant. Can you block AI? Kids are cheating. Kids are cheating. Kids are cheating. Right? It was like, okay, again, let's slow down and have conversations. If I had just come in and said, yeah, I know all those things, but hey, let me teach you ChatGPT, I would
Mm-hmm.
have gotten nowhere, right? Because they saw it as a threat. They saw it as a threat
Yeah.
to them and a threat to like the future of humanity, right? I was picturing like Terminator, right? They were like, this is it, this is the downfall of humanity. But when we switched it and we pulled in, a pilot group of teachers first, right? It's always good to start small and you don't want to mess up on a global scale. So let's start smaller.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, what can it do? And is it truly cheating? And I teach college students too. And I will like tell my college students, hey, you have a paper due on Sunday. You should share it with AI. And they're like, what? What? I'm gonna get in trouble. It's like, look, I didn't say you should have AI write it for you,
Mm-hmm.
but you should put the prompt in there and share your paper and ask it if there are areas that you need to beef up before you turn it in to me on Sunday, right? Ask it if your introduction and your conclusion makes sense. You don't do all those things. And so that's what we're doing at the K-12 level, right? Is like, I get that you're seeing that students are cheating. Let's analyze that. It's an equity issue.
Yeah.
Are they cheating or are they using a tool to benefit themselves? Sometimes they're cheating. And when they're cheating, the other question is how many of them? Right? So like I have my history social studies teacher who has these fabulous discussion forums throughout her course. And she's like, I asked them a question about themselves and they put it in AI. Right. And she's like, it's obvious because AI is like, well, I'm only a robot. I can't actually do this, but here's what, I would recommend. And so then the question didn't, it switched. It was like, okay, if all these students used AI for this simple thing, why? Is
Mm-hmm.
there not trust in the classroom that they feel comfortable sharing with their peers what you ask them to? Is it a boring question and they have other priorities, right? Like we do. Right? I don't
Yeah.
have time for this. Let me go throw this, somewhere. Um, was it too hard? There's all these different conversations. So again, we started with the mindset. I can't come in and teach you AI right away and show you all the things if you're seeing it as a threat. So when we started having those conversations, then it was like, okay, so what can it do? So we purchased one of the AI companies. I won't say, just to keep it agnostic, but we purchased one of the AI companies that are built for schools. And so now teachers are building bots for their classroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a music teacher who is phenomenal. He's like probably one of the most engaging teachers you'll ever meet in your life. Kids love him. So how does he bring AI in, right? When he's already engaging and doing these great things. So he created a bot. He called it the Lyric Lantern, and the bot helps students write songs. That's his thing in music is he's teaching them to write their own songs and they
Yeah.
perform it. So this Lyric Lantern, he spent a lot of time figuring out how to do this, right? Because he saw the need, because we'd spent so much time talking about ethics and such. He built it out to help kids with their lyrics. And he told the bot, you will not write the lyrics for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just ask them questions, ask them about their childhood, ask them to create, a vision, ask them what it smelled like, what it looked like. And so this one girl created these lyrics, and it's like, where the apricots grow, that is where I knew I loved you. And she turned it into this whole song, and she created and recorded it. And now she's applying for scholarships, like Dolly Parton scholarships, right? And so, like, I wouldn't have gotten there if I had just said, hey, everybody, turn on, this tool. And for the next 45 minutes, I'm going to teach you how to log in and where to go to click the buttons to do this thing, right? The need had to be there first.
Right.
And that's the key. So once the need is there, we have professional development every single Friday for 1 hour,
Okay.
every single Friday. Okay. So 1 hour is set aside. You're going to learn something, whether it's something I have to teach you, like, hey, bloodborne pathogens, or it's something that you want to learn. We have that piece in there. We
Hmm.
have, before the school year starts, we have 3 days of in-person professional development. We bring them all off-site to a location. And it's focused on mindset before tools. So we spent 2 days talking about the science of mattering, the science of hope, stories, all these pieces. And then the last day, the half day on the last day, was all workshops with the tools. You've heard all these things. Which tools are going to help you get there now? Right?
Hmm.
Like that's the shift. Like I've created this compelling need. I had a teacher who was sitting there, and she was so funny. She's like stressed out. She's one of my like just favorite teachers in terms of being creative. I'm like, why are you stressed out? She's like, I feel like I have to redo everything I've been doing because I'm thinking so much about the science of mattering and how do I make kids feel like they matter. And then it was like, but AI can help me with that,
Yeah.
right? If I create this AI bot that can ask them these questions, and guess what? The teachers are getting the responses on the back end. So it's not private, right? They're seeing, and the students know that the teachers are seeing what's happening, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's big. The other thing we've done this year, and it's too soon to tell you if it works, but is we had teachers self-designate which learning objective they want for themselves for the year. My
Hmm.
curriculum director came up with this, and it was super brilliant of, what's your goal this year? Is your goal AI, or is your goal like, something? She had like 13 categories. Teachers self-selected what they felt was important to them. And now throughout the year on those Friday PDs, we're going to have opportunities for them to get together and say, how am I progressing on my goal, right? It's like when you make a resolution January 1st. If you don't tell it to people and have people that support you, you're not
Yeah.
going to do it. So by her creating space for them to say, look, this is where the school is going, but where do you want to go? And then having opportunities for them to get together, I think they're going to grow, monumentally. But that's the PD that a lot of districts don't have time for.
Right.
And hey, if they want to hire me, but no. So, but no, but that's where they need to be though,
Yeah.
right? Is they need to get the mindset in place, and then the tools make sense,
Right.
right? If I just see AI as an opportunity for kids to cheat, I don't want to learn how to use it. Or if I just see AI as a way for me to write emails that always start with hope you're doing well,
Hmm.
right? Then like it doesn't work. But if I show you how AI can help you think differently about your lesson, right? Like I went to I can't remember which conference it was, but I showed these teachers in AI. I'm like, look, I have a database of my students. I've stripped out their information, right? It's just a number. And I have all these facts about my students. I have hobbies. I have, a little bit about, what they do. I also have every one of their state test scores. So I can see, I know if they're an English learner, and I dump it into this AI. And then I tell the AI, okay, next week, we're going to be writing an essay. I want you to personalize the prompt for every student in my class based on their interests, based on their reading level, based on, all these different pieces. We're all writing an essay, but yours might be about, gaming, and mine might be about off-roading, and your directions might be a lot more complicated than mine because I'm an English learner and I'm still understanding how to do this. Mine might come with sentence frames.
Yeah.
Yours might not. But in the classroom, all you see are that every student is writing an essay. Like that's the power of AI, right? But until you get teachers to see the mindset of why personalization is important, why mattering is important, right? Why students need to be taught hope, executive functioning skills, like until you do those, then AI is replacing me,
Hmm.
right? Or AI is bad. So you have to go back. You have to do mindset. You got to do ethics, right? And talk about some of the guardrails. So we train them to think about the tools before they use the tools. What do you think about AI? Now,
Yeah.
let me show you how to do it in a way that's ethical, in a way that's effective, in a way that's equitable.
Well, I hope Elite Academy know how lucky they are to have you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think they do.
No, because honestly, because we do this very often. So
Mm,
our delivery has those concepts of assessments. How do you
mhm,
plan rubrics? How do you design personalization in lesson planning,
mhm,
differentiation in lesson planning for gifted students, for students who have reading issues. And this all starts with the why first, and then, of course, get to tools. And
mhm,
in between, there is ethics as well as the digital citizenship as an element. So
mhm,
so what you just said has summarized everything in such a beautiful, connected way, and done it for sure. So yeah,
mhm,
I love it. Just want to understand the final aspect of our discussion today, uh,
mhm.
about the money. So what's going on with the money aspect? Like a lot of districts have this issue, or charter schools have this issue of cutting down investments. So
Mhm.
how have you going to be guys figuring out the funds for AI VR this year, or
Mhm.
have you guys cut down something? Can you tell us about
Here,
that?
here's the thing. Money's always an issue, but
Hmm.
money's an issue because you have to choose your priorities, and they're tough conversations to have, but you have to have them. So if your priority is equitable learning, put your money where your mouth is, right? And so we have sought out a ton of grants, right? In California, there's a CTEG grant for CTE, which has helped fund, some of these programs and such. But what's not as important, and you just have to have those conversations. If I can purchase these devices, and I did the math the other day, I was like kind of thinking through it all, and I was like, oh, it ends up actually being like I think $2 a day per kid, like over the course of a school year. Like you see those commercials with like feed a child, it's only 50 cents a day or something, right? It's like it's not that much when you kind of break it down. So what am I willing to give up? Well, I'm willing to give up some of those drill and kill programs that I've been using with students that cost me a lot of money, right? So can I get rid of some of those and use this instead? Again, because you can't just keep putting more things on teachers' plates. You got
Hmm.
to take something off.
Yeah,
So I think a problem with a lot of this stuff is districts are like, well, we need money for this. Where are we going to find the money? It's like you got to look at what you've already put on teachers' plates and what can you take off and then put this in its place instead. So we've been very critical with the software we were using with students beforehand. Is this something that we believe in? Does this represent our values, or is this a quick fix, type of approach? Um, when you look at things like again, like districts who are struggling, like buses and things like that. Okay, well, I can do field trips without the buses.
hmm,
So, how does that save me money, right? I just think I don't have a quick answer. I wish I could say like just do this one thing and then you'll have all this money for AI and VR, but you just really have to look at the prioritization. There's a lot of research that shows that when students are engaged, they have better attendance. So
yeah,
can I recoup funding because I've given them and you're kind of taking the chance, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna purchase this now in hopes that the money comes in down the road, but it will.
yeah,
Just like they found out that if you put microphones on teachers in regular classrooms, they're not as sick as often because they're not having to project their voice as much, right? And so then we're not paying for substitutes as often. Like there's these pieces, but again, if your value set isn't determined first, there's never going to be money for it.
right.
But when your value set says, I pay this just like I pay the electric bill every month, just like I pay teachers' salaries every month, you
Hmm.
find a way to make it happen. And that's what we had to do. We just really had to shift and say, if this is truly what we believe in is best for students, what are we going to cut?
Right. No, I think that's very elegantly put, because that just put things in perspective, and then money becomes a medium to
Hmm.
buy goods and services and not anything else.
Right.
So yeah, I'll adore honestly that answer. And there are ways. It depends. Like I think again, it comes down to the how much control or how much hierarchy is blocking things off. So
Hmm.
things can be transparent, then of course, because
Hmm.
we have $1 trillion plus expenses on education in a year. So
Right.
think about
Right.
it. That's crazy. So yeah, and some districts have like anything from $25,000 to even $30,000 per student spent per annum. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think that it's insane. But I'm glad you guys are able to figure out things from
Hmm.
budgets that you
Hmm.
have. But
Hmm.
yeah, it does. So we did cover up a lot of topics around starting with your own personal journey to how impactful AI and VR is right now in your school, and what are the concerns, how's the impact, how's the experience, how's the money coming in, and how the teachers are looking at it, how the teachers are being trained. Is there anything that I haven't touched upon that you think we should talk about or we should just share?
I think we've touched on so much. I don't know that I would really add anything. I think the takeaway is being very intentional, being very equity driven, and being human first, right? I think everything we talked about comes down to those components. And I think anybody doing any of this work, right? If it's that they're choosing to purchase your games, or they're choosing to send kids on a field trip, or they're choosing to buy a new textbook, if you're not looking at it through those lenses, you're missing the mark.
Yeah,
And it's a savvy generation, and there's access to so much out there that we are competing against now. I am competing against YouTube that will teach anything to anybody, right? I am competing against social media that will deliver the news before I've even like looked at it, right? We are in constant competition with the world around us. We can't wait.
yeah,
If we continue to wait, if we continue to say, well, my teachers aren't ready yet, like what happens to the students? What happens to your child? Right? Like, I don't know. I think one of my favorite analogies is if I had some terminal illness and I went to the doctor and that doctor told me I haven't been to a convention or opened a peer review magazine in 10 years. Do you think I would trust that doctor with my care? Or would I go to one who's like, I just went to a conference last month. I'm in touch with like the top people in the field. And like, that's what our teachers need to be. And a lot of them are, but I don't think they're like respected for that. And so I think some of them just kind of stop. But you have to be top of your game.
yeah,
Like these students depend on it. If you're worried about the future of our global economy, if you're worried about the direction tech is going, guess what? These kids are going to be the ones to determine that. So how about we teach them and educate them
yeah,
in a way that prepares them for it instead of being afraid of it, right? I can't block it. I can't block what's coming, but
yeah,
I can certainly teach my students how to be compassionate and how to think critically and how to second guess and question things
yeah,
that come their way, right? So I don't know. 10 years ago, I had no idea AI was going to be where it is right now.
yeah,
But did I prepare students? Sure, I did. Because I gave them those skills, right? I gave them those I hate to call them soft skills. They're critical skills. I gave them the life skills they needed to make good choices.
yeah. So, you know what? I've never heard an educator or a school thinking in that lens of YouTube being a competition, because
Hmm.
what you just said is 120% true. So when we as a startup, we think about creating our business plan, and when we define
Hmm.
competitors, we don't define it just from the point of view whose money are we gonna take away from. We think
Hmm.
of the time, we think about from the priorities. So I am more and more confident in the way you think. You are thinking like an entrepreneur who is
Hmm.
trying to understand the problem statement, understand the sector, understand the customers, and having that kind of acumen while being into an K-12 is a very insane combination. And I can easily say that. So you were winking for a public school. I am thinking for myself that we should definitely talk offline.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. The
But
conversation's not over. We're just starting. The conversations. We'll
I'm
get there.
I'm already sold. So this is insane. Like Laura, I think I cannot have a much better conversation lately.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much
Thank you.
for your time.
Thank you.
It
Thanks for
was
having me.
it was insane pleasure, and I will keep in touch. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll talk soon. Thank you, Avinash. This is great.